Hello and welcome to this video about Factorio. So for new and old Factorio players, I wanted to do a video that talks about some of these blueprints and concepts and lessons learned that I've done when I've been playing Factorio. Personally, I think Factorio is an incredible game that is just, it basically takes things like Minecraft and Transport Tycoon and all these amazing games in history that have kind of left their mark and have kind of brought them together and done some amazing stuff. So it really takes so many of these concepts and puts them together and stimulates your brain in ways that I've never experienced in any other game. What I wanted to show you is we can talk a little bit about the rocket that I have here, which I've done in another video. I'll put a link in the description as well as at the end screen that covers this. But basically, this is how I've been launching rockets. This game right now is pretty much at this point a sandbox. After I launched my first few rockets, I started getting fatigued by the fact that I had to go off and do crazy things. Like if we look at the map, scroll out here, you can see I have these satellites where I was gathering materials. Like this is an oil field. This here is a patch of iron ore, which at this point I've cheated and added more iron to, because I was just getting tired of it. And this is my main patch that I finally added that this is kind of obsolete, but I haven't really removed it. So yeah, I've done some cheats to kind of clean things up and make it easy for me to do experiments. So this is demonstrating some of these experiments and what I've come up with. And I wanted to share these cool blueprints and see what people think. And maybe it helps you to kind of decide going forward. Let's go over some of the more random stuff real quick to get those out of the way. This here, I've installed this mod that's realistic reverse factory. It's been really nice to have something that will allow me to clean up what's in my logistics inventory. And by using a realistic reverse factory, I'm able to do that. I can basically pump in, I can do crazy filters like, oh, I want to get rid of all this stuff. And it'll put it on the plate and it'll put it on the belt and dump it into the reverse factory. Other things that I'm no longer using anymore or just I shouldn't have any excess of, it's nice to get the raw materials back and then reuse those materials. Now, some other random stuff here. This was originally a lot more complex battery production, but one of the things I want to bring up is if you're going to recycle batteries, you're going to end up putting sulfuric acid back into the tanks. Now you'll see here I'm kind of draining the tanks at this point. All I have to do to start filling them up is rotate this, and then I'll start producing sulfuric acid again. And I had, pretty much I didn't need all this. And over time, what you're going to find is that, sure, you might need a lot of batteries, but, once you get to this point at the end of the game, it's not that essential. I'm using the batteries to make robots at this point for the most part. And I also want to make sure that I'm maintaining some level of surplus here of accumulators. Now, accumulators, the reason why I put them next to the battery, it makes sense, right? It's one of their main ingredients is batteries. So this guy is basically pulling directly from the battery supply to create accumulators, also pulling from an iron supply. Now, if you're new to Factorio, one of the greatest features that it offers you is this ability to manage your logistics of inventory by using essentially filters. And by the way, things might seem a bit speedy right now. That's because I have the game on 2x. Because I don't want us to be lagging around, and so it might seem a little bit fast. So I apologize, but just heads up, that's what's going on. Now, what you have here is you turn on logistics, and what I have it set is that I don't want to be producing, so I'm saying the inventory, this picker, or inserter, sorry, this inserter is only enabled if the total count in the logistics system of accumulators is less than 100. Now, that's great, because as you can see here, in the logistics system somewhere else that I'm not aware of, because obviously this box is empty, right? So it's not putting anything in. But that's the nice thing about it is by chance if I end up taking a bunch out and then putting it back in, whether it's because of destroying or whatever, that will make sure that I'm not overproducing and I'm not wasting materials. So for all the new players of Factorio, this is a great bit of information that preferably you should try to learn to do this instead of just putting limits on boxes. Because, so you can see here, if you didn't know, right, you can do this kind of limitation on a box, right? And I'm saying over 100, so I can put it at any, really. But the point being is that by putting this, you're making sure that you're not overproducing across the entire system. If the construction bots and logistics bots already have a lot available to them. Why do you need to like continue to produce, even though maybe the box itself has, oh, I'm going to stop at 50, you still might have 1,000 elsewhere. So it just doesn't make sense to make any more. I just recently did this, and so this is one of the main concepts I think everybody needs to understand. And the reason why I built this area here, it's because it's called, at least what I call, a reverse pipeline. And that you always want to begin with the end in mind. This looks maybe overcomplicated, but there is a purpose to this whole area here. All of it is very important. And I'll explain. So first of all, there's the iron plate that's coming in that is being fed to both the belts and to the level ones of all of these different belt parts. Then, you know, this should make sense just by looking at it, that from this belt to this belt to this belt, right? Makes sense. And same thing with these other three, all nice and laterally in order, and it makes sense when you look at it. But you'll notice that if you look at the gears, right, which are a key part for almost all of these after level ones, what I do is I feed them down and around, and I feed them to the final belt first. Then I feed it to the next level belt, and I keep doing that in order. So this has a higher priority than this, etc., etc., etc. Now, why would I do it in reverse order? Well, it's important to try to do things in reverse order, meaning you begin with the end in mind and work backwards, because if you don't, what can happen is you can build up this massive surplus. If, let's say, either one, you're not producing enough gears, or two, you have an inserter that's moving that's faster than it's the one following it. And what that means is that this, say for example, this red belt could develop this massive surplus before developing any one of these fast belts. But you have to remember that because this fast belt is a prerequisite, or sorry, this, what do we call these guys? Fast transport belt are, you know, like, so let's say that the express belt has the prerequisite of a fast belt, right? Well, that means that if we produce one of these, we need one of those. So if we feed it in reverse order, we guarantee a fluid flow in this pipeline, a production pipeline. So always think about when you're doing this, if you're putting it, if you think like normal, sorry, if you're thinking on the normal way of just like feed everything to this thing, then feed everything to this thing, then feed everything to this thing, then you're going to find that what's going to happen is you're going to get this huge pileup of level 1 until it can't produce anymore, and then you'll get a huge pileup of level 2, and then you get a huge pileup of level 3. And that's not what you want with pipelines. You want to feed it in reverse, and I'll show other examples of feeding things in reverse here in a minute. So for example, I'll show more reverse production here. Now these guys here are basically, they don't need it. They're just a single thing. They need chips, they need, you know, materials, and that's it. And so I'm just producing these. They're just in place because all of the materials are available. But you'll notice that I put this one's line of gears all the way at the end, and then I feed again. I wait until the metal gets to here after it's already been fed to everybody else. So everybody else gets the priority before I start developing this other prerequisite and feeding it back to these guys. Sorry if I'm moving really fast, but hopefully you kind of get the point. So keep that in mind. If you're having trouble and you're creating pipelines and they just seem to be backing up, or you're not getting what you want out of it, try to make things go in reverse. Now, here is my blueprint for producing chips. Now, this is my most advanced version of this, where I've slipped in where I can in beacons to try to increase the speed. And so what the most important thing about this is having a plenty of supply of copper wire. But you'll notice again that I'm feeding the copper wire first to the red before I get to the green. Because if I did not, what I would do is I would end up producing a huge amount of green before any red was produced. The goal in this whole pipeline is really to produce blue chips. So blue is what gets everything. It has the highest priority out of everything. But nice thing about blue, and you'll see, and also in this priority queue, notice that green is something that blue needs. So I'm feeding the green to the blue before I feed it to the red, even though red is a prerequisite for blue. Okay? I hope that that clicks for people. It's really a concept that is hard for a lot of people to get. But if we're even talking about in pipelines and in multiple threading in computers, it's still kind of a similar thing. You don't want to be feeding the head of your pipeline all the time. You want to kind of feed the tail so that, it sounds crazy, to get rid of all of this excess stuff. Now, this is one of my favorite patterns and blueprints for producing iron plate or copper plate, is this pattern where, one, it's kind of auto-balancing. I'm using this I'm using two furnaces side by side, because if you see the area of which the electric pole is covering, it covers a perfect area around the furnace in this pattern, and then this one also covers those and covers those. So I really like this double up pattern. It works really good. And then I use, you might be wondering, why do I have two of each? Well, remember that inserters, a regular inserter is a lot less energy consumption than a fast inserter. And obviously you're looking now and you go, well, you aren't using two at a time. And I'm like, well, that's true. But if there was a chance, you'll see here that these guys, if you click, you'll see that there's a huge backup of copper plate here, right? Now, if by chance, if I drain this, I don't know, by chance somehow I'm able to just super sap all of the supply here, then, something like these furnaces here would have this huge buffer, and then they would drain quicker because there's an extra inserter. That's the only reason that's there. And just in case I kind of keep this, and you can see it's both of these are being done though, right? So it's a nice happy balance. It doesn't use fast inserters, which are more of an electrical drain. So this makes a lot more sense to me. And I also have really enjoyed this version of it where, again, you've got this nice balanced side by side, like I said, we've got 2 by 2 and then by 2 versions of this that dump onto the things and keep it nice and balanced all the way down. And so we have this really clean and almost kind of guaranteed copper line here. Now let's talk about a little bit more about like this iron thing. Now I went a little bit overboard on this just because, and again, I was cheating, so I went ahead and made, there's the blueprint here that I use for iron ore. I have two of them, one of them with slow belts and one with fast belts. And so if we'll look at the fast belt one, I think here somewhere. Where are we here? Ah, here we go. So this guy, the point behind it is a perfect unit that is interlocking, right? Like I can just spam this all I want, and as long as I line them up perfectly from belt to belt, I have a nice, perfectly stretched out thing where this coverage area for each miner is 1 square out. And so this is perfect coverage, but at the same time, I can run through it. There's no electrical issues. So I'm using 3 different poles, so 1, 2, and 3 in kind of this weird triangle, but it works just fine, and it works very well for my purposes. And you'll see that I use kind of a weave in order to capture both sides. So I'm saving as many belts as I can by doing that. And I can make this giant field with ease just by using that blueprint. So that saved me a lot of time. And I use that on all of my mines at this point. Now after that's said and done, I rejoin all the material back in here, and then I'd redistribute it to my iron plate facility. Now in the beginning, I remember I might have mentioned something about reverse factories. And to be honest, I really think that I almost would want to let the iron plate go all the way through the system and come back around. And believe it or not, that's what this is doing right here. This is the return loop of all the iron plate going into the system. But I thought about it that there's a huge amount of steel plate that I need to produce. Why not just kind of interlink those together, produce some steel plate, and then move on? And I thought this worked pretty well. So again, same pattern I was using before where I put 2 furnaces side by side. I use 1 pole in between. I use 2 inserters on and off the belt, and that works great. And then the exact same pattern gets used again, but just offset slightly for steel plate, and that works great here too. Stick with me here because there's a lot of cool things to cover, and I've got some of my more important ones. So before, if you're getting, you know, like, man, this is a lot to absorb, let me share with you one of the most important blueprints I have, and I used it all over the place, and that is a lane balancer. Now, what you're seeing here is this is a single lane balancer where it takes in it takes in a double lane or any lane and then splits it in half here and then rejoins it, but only rejoins it on one side. And the key to that is this little guy right here, right? This one is what is actually causing this thing to rotate and therefore feeding it back on the same thing. Now, if you didn't already know and you're new, that these splitters are also joiners, and they make sure that they alternate equally on both sides. So I'm guaranteeing that the lanes are balanced. Now, why would I want to do that? Well, it's important that, you know, if I don't do that, then I'm biasing one side, and you're going to see that, you know, one of these is going to get used more than the other, and we kind of don't want that, right? Now, there are other balancers that I have that I'm going to show you. Now, this one is this is a simple single lane balancer, and I'm also biasing it that on this side. Normally, I would bias on this side so that what would happen is that they would end up on the opposite side. But because of how I have it set up, I want it to be laned on this side. And you'll see here I'm doing kind of a similar thing here, but all I did in order to make it fit was I put the belt here. Now give me a moment and let me show you. Again, here's another single lane balancer that's happening. I'm trying to find a double lane balancer for you guys because it's one of those ones that is important. Now what I'll do is I can actually implement a double lane balancer for you, and I'll show you how it works, because this is the most important, I think, one that I have. I'm going to go ahead and cut this up for you, and we're going to take this out, and I'm going to open up my blueprints, and we're going to find where that is. I've got some cool blueprints here, but let me find the one that is, there we go. This is the basic double lane balancer here. And so we're going to drop it in, and we'll let the bots build it, and then I'll put back some belts, and we'll wait for everything to come together. And there we go. Now, what is happening here? Why would I care about this? What is this actually doing? What it's doing is it's using, first of all, it's putting everything on one side. Now, why would I put it on one side? Well, by putting it on one side, I leverage the property of this express splitter in order to force it to balance left and right, left, right, left, right. So you can see here that it's going in on the top side of the belt, and it's going in on the top side of the belt in both cases. That means that the splitter has to say, okay, left, right, left, right, left, right. So as you can see, because this one is always going, the nature of this one here is that it's always going to take the top lane first, and then it's going to take the bottom lane next. Now, you're going, is it really? And yeah, if you actually watch this after a while, you'll figure out why that actually happens. Is that because of the way that it splits things in half, it's going to left and right these. So what that does is it makes sure that any material that's coming through here will always be fed, you know, appropriately left and right, and nothing will get backed up, essentially. So, for example, it works kind of on both sides. If on this side there was one lane that was backed up, then this thing would automatically push through on the opposite lane. So nothing would ever stop, even though one lane was stopped. And then on the flip side of this is that if one of these got backed up, the other one did not, or let's say it was empty on one side, then if for an intermediate amount of time, it would still balance those to be on both sides of the belt. So this is the blueprint itself. And again, all you have to do to bias it on one side is remove this guy. And now it's a single lane balancer. But by putting in a one back, now we go back to 2 lanes. So not a big deal, or at least it looks like it's not a big deal, but I've used this so many times, and it took me so long to get right. I tried all kinds of things, and then I was like, oh my God, this is so easy once you really figure it out. One of my favorite blueprints, and I'm sure I was inspired by someone else in their and how they had a solar area, and I call this a solar garden. And again, I apologize if somehow I end up using someone else's name for this. It's easy for me to pick that up on accident. I personally just think it fits because instead of you know, a solar field or whatever you want to call it. It's a garden. What I did and what's nice about this pattern, I have it set up, it can rotate perfectly. And I can basically, so like, for example, I'll redeploy this now. So we'll go pick up the solar garden here. Let's see, where are you here? It's right here in my book. All right, and we'll drop it on top. Now you can see here, I've lined it up and it's all blue. Now if I hit rotate, it fits perfectly every time. Now again, there's a little bit of an offset, but it doesn't matter what direction I put it in, because I've made it so that it's all perfectly symmetrical, as well as I've even made sure that the hazard concrete has also matched up. And I don't know why these guys I think they're lagging to fill this in, but yeah. The key thing is that it creates a nice joining of the networks for logistics. It adds a little bit of storage, and it has a nice amount of energy storage and a nice amount of solar panels. And it's very easy to run around. There's lights, and it fits perfectly in a sense of, you can see here right on this edge that the logistics square is perfectly lined up, and it allows for that kind of linking. So these are very nice interlocking blueprints. If you're just starting out and you want a simple blueprint, I really like this kind of style blueprint where basically it's just from this corner all the way to here, and it's very interlocking. You can rotate. I just have like one light and one electric pole on on two edges, and they will easily interlock together, and you can rotate them around. And it just uses you can see here, a substation to manage it. Now, I'm sure everybody's seen that one before, but it's nice, you know, and you want to be able to I feel like it's important to be able to run through some of these fields. So by having a gap with this in between as the interlocking of these is really nice. So that's another thing. But over time, I kind of prefer to use this solar garden pattern. Let's do a quick review of a wall pattern that I came up with. Now, I really believe that, you know, as a defense, you know, I'll just end up using electricity, and so I'm using lasers. But I also, as I built up, I felt like it was important to expand your electrical capacity to handle an expanding laser field, right? So I modularly made this kind of wall pattern that will prevent, you know, when they come into attack, they try to come around and they try to attack the lasers. But before they can even get close, they get fried. So we can talk more about how belts are used to slow down aliens, or I guess they would be natives. Is that right? But yeah, that's definitely, this is the pattern I've got. And I've got a couple blueprints that interlock these really nicely. So I think we're getting close to wrapping up the majority of this stuff. I just wanted to cover these really useful, I think, patterns and things that are useful. I've also found, just kind of a note, you know, if you're having these little fields that are running dry, I'm kind of partial to using these assembling and deassembling of barrels, so that you're not really, if one barrel gets created every minute or two, like here, we'll find one of these just to kind of show it off. There's a point where it's like, I don't really want to be running belts, or I want to be running pipes when, you know, like here we are. Okay, it produced one, and then look at how slow it is. It's just tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Why would I care? Now, in a minute here, I think, you know, a logistics robot will come pick that up, but it doesn't matter to me. If it's only producing it at a certain rate, then that's really slow, then why care about creating all this infrastructure to manage it? And that same goes for other different small patches as well. My oil facility, I have, again, a receiving station where I put things in tanks. I've got, this is the number of refineries that I'm using at the moment, and then I've kind of cleaned things up to have, you know, as much fracking as possible. I've turned this off, actually, because this was my additional fracking, which, you know, believe it or not, I could probably turn that on at this point, because it's not fracking fast enough. There's a surplus here of light oil, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And I think part of the reason why I was doing that was I was considering using this to convert directly to fuel. But we'll go ahead and which is what these guys are doing here. But for now, we'll go ahead and try to drain that tank out. Because for the most part, as people know, petroleum seems to be the most useful of all the liquid materials. Keep in mind that tech tree is really important in a sense. You probably, one of the things you want to shoot for is getting your mech suit. So let's talk about the mech suit real quick. Here's my mech suit pattern, which I'm basically invincible at this point. Yeah, in fact, let's go off and show that invincibility. And so what you want to do is I use destroyer capsules, and I have the, actually these are distractor ones, and these are the destroyer ones. Now, the distractor capsules are great if you want to kind of prevent yourself from, if you're early stages and you don't want to get killed. But I'm just going to warn you that, here we go, I'm going to put out, I can put out 134, I think, of these. And then I can literally walk into a base and just without even any effort and just pick up stuff. I'm literally just picking up the dropped artifacts. I'm not even caring about defending myself because these destroyers are, but you got to make sure that you don't, because they're getting eaten up. So you got to make sure that you're keeping up with the count. That's why I produce a lot of those. And, and you can see I was barely even hit at all, and I can keep going. Now, oh, hi there. Do you want some? You want some of this? Yeah, that's right. Just kidding. And so the reason why this is so feasible is because of these. I've got 6 shields, and that's the whole point. And then adding these in is just kind of like overkill. I obviously want my roboport. I want to be able to see at night. I just added in a battery in to fill in the space, and then 2 fusion reactors, and then the legs, right? So that's my pattern that works, and I'll thank one of my friends for kind of coming up with the ability to, he showed me that you could get 5, and I was like, well, why can't I have 6? And then I figured out how to have 6, so that's pretty much it. Landfill is nice. I've been doing landfill. I don't have that many mods on this one, for example, and I'm trying to think, that's pretty much it. But I'll tell you the final words for advanced players as well as for new players. This is the key here. Having your green chip production be outstanding is the key to success in this game, in my opinion. You want to really, really lock this down. Now, this thing, when it gets going, it sings. It really, really sings. Like, I can probably fake it by just kind of going, I don't even know if I can pick up enough. You can see there, it fills up really, really fast because green chips in Factorio just get gobbled up like candy. And if you have a really solid green chip production, in this case, this is, as far as I know, this is as fast as you can produce. This is a pattern where as long as there's plenty of supply, of which I made sure there is, this is as fast as you can produce green chips, and it's modular. I could keep going down and expanding green chip production if it was something I needed to do. But I think for the amount in a single factory with a single rocket, I don't think you'll be able to need any more than that. So thanks again for watching this video and visiting the compound. Please give a like to this video if you liked it, and I probably won't be doing any more videos about Factorio, but again, appreciate your patronage, and we'll see you next time.